right, hello everybody. It is April 17th, otherwise known as the day I was supposed to be on vacation. Um, Typically the Friday after tax season we tend to have off, but because of all the craziness right now and the fact that technically the 15th wasn't the tax deadline this year, um, the managing partner of my firm decided to push that to a time that kind of makes more sense for us. Which I get, I understand, but at the same time, it would have been nice to have off today, especially considering I had this been normal tax season, by this point I would have been several tiki drinks in on the beach. So it is what it is, and it'll be fine, and I'll get my tiki drinks at some point. But it's just like, man. Um, all right, in the world, uh, some pluses and minuses. As when Trump rolled out the other day the beginnings of plans to reopen things, some governors went one way with it and some governors went another way. Um, for example, New York and New Jersey, which are like the two states that have been most affected by this. Sorry, I realize that my computer puts a glare on my glasses, so I apologize. It's just, I tried to adjust it. It just is what it is. Um, so New York and New Jersey decided that they're not like reopening their states and they're trying to, keep people safe as much as they possibly can. And actually, New Jersey just became the first state that's going to allow foreign doctors to come treat, foreign licensed doctors to come treat people in the state because, there are entire countries who don't have as many cases as New York and New Jersey right now. So if you're a doctor in Canada, you can drive down and help New Jersey or New York, which is actually depending on where you are in Canada, it's really not that far of a drive. I've driven Philly to Canada a couple times and it's not bad. It's really not that bad. On the other hand, the governor of Florida, I believe, I don't remember whether it was the governor of Florida or the mayor of Jacksonville, said that Jacksonville beaches were going to reopen. Just I'm saying that I'm like today, like tonight. And I'm just like, dude, first off, the governor of Florida is having an astoundingly, historically bad publicity-wise reaction to this. Like just the methods he took, the methods he's currently taking are just all around bad. And probably will historically be noted for how bad they are. If I had a guess, there's a meme floating around at the moment saying how lifting restrictions right now would be like not finishing your course of antibiotics because you think you're starting to feel better, which is bad because then you create viruses, no pun intended, but then you create illnesses that are antibiotic resistant, which is, another problem. That's a later problem. That's a non-pandemic problem. Anyway, so that's going on. The Texas governor said he wanted to open some things up and do curbside retail, which I don't really understand what curbside retail entails, because on the one hand, you could think like, good because people aren't in the store. On the other hand, if they're in their cars and stuff, don't you have to see the stuff? Maybe it's like an order thing. Maybe it's like a pickup thing. Maybe Texas banned pickup at some point. And they're saying that's what they can have back, but I didn't really understand the idea. Trump announced a $19 billion relief program to aid farmers who have been affected by this because, farmers can't work remotely. They can't be like, oh yeah, we'll just switch to the online version. Like, of course not. And these people were panic buying, people still are panic buying to an extent, but it's getting less so now. And so the demand for food was very high. And And so farmers were really, really hit by this. They kept working and they kept being there, and they didn't have the protection they needed. Uh, so yeah, that's good for that. Actually, yeah, it's kind of interesting. I went grocery shopping the other day, and the differences week to week are comforting, I would have to say. At the beginning of this, I was listening to Gone with the Wind on audiobook, which if you've never read it, it's a doozy. That's like, it's a great quarantine activity if anyone needs to do something for 3 weeks of their life. It's a very long book. Listening to it on Audible took about 50 hours. There's about 50 hours of content of somebody reading it, so take that as you will. Anyway, if you're unfamiliar with the plot, it's set in the beginning of it's the antebellum South through the Civil War to the Reconstruction era of the South, and it centers around Scarlett O'Hara, this essentially heiress of the time. Her father owned a very profitable plantation. They had a lot of slaves. She was like the belle of the ball wherever she went. Anyway, all that being said, you see throughout the progression of the book, or at least the beginning part, that things become limited as the North cuts off supplies and other countries like England, who is going to support the South, can't bring things in. They can't run the blockades. Things become scarcer and scarcer. At some point, there's really no leather for shoes, so people are wearing cardboard shoes or like cutting up carpets to kind of make shoes. They, by the time Scarlett gets back to Tara, her plantation, the only thing to eat that the army has left is like they dig up sweet potatoes because the Northern soldiers didn't know what they were, which is the only reason they left them. And she talks about the food that's on the tables that's just like what existed and what people had at the time, and she vows that when she has money, those foods will never appear on her table. And I have to say, it was very disconcerting listening to that at the beginning of this pandemic, at the beginning of the panic buying, because it was like I went into a store and just things were gone. And, I didn't know if they were coming back. And it was like, it was scary because at the beginning, that's kind of how it started for Scarlett. It was like, oh, well, we can't have like real coffee, but we make do and we still have sugar and cream. Oh, well, we don't have any sugar anymore, but we have cream, So just seeing the things gone was in conjunction with that, you kind of wonder from it, you're like, how bad is this going to get? Because I'm listening to this example over here. But thankfully now when you go into a food store, at least now, things are mostly there. Toilet paper is actually, I have to show you guys. Just grab it. It's on my table because I haven't put it away yet. But I found toilet paper at the store. It's giant. It's literally bigger than my head. And I kind of thought it was a joke. And then I was like, you know what? Let me just grab one of those rolls just in case. And it's interesting because that's the kind of role you would see in like an office, right? Or like a school. And so maybe as those supply lines shift and orders for schools and offices aren't being ordered because people aren't there, that product will go to grocery stores and people can buy it, and then we'll all have toilet paper. Everyone can have toilet paper, hopefully. But like pasta's fully back, all kinds of pasta are fully back, like tomato sauce, frozen foods, like all things like that. Excuse me. That's how I sneezed. But yeah, so that's nice to see. Though the wine still has not returned, and I would like wine back, please. I clearly went grocery shopping and then put all the stuff on my table and then didn't ever move it. I got a Mouton Cadet Bordeaux Rosé, which I actually quite like. This was actually when I turned 21. The day I turned 21 was so funny. We're gonna just quick divert to story time for a second. The day I turned 21, I was on spring break. It was my junior year of college, and my dad also works at a college, so he also happened to be on spring break. So I was home, and we went to this bar that I'd gone to all the time as a kid. It was like a place that we'd go for dinner and stuff like that. It was like a restaurant that was a bar and sports. It's where I watched the Phillies win the 2008 World Series. I spent a lot of time in McMenamins. I loved McMenamins. So it was fitting that that's where we should go. And so we went for lunch, and we kind of had to think about it because it was like, okay, this isn't my first drink. It's not even my first legal drink because I had been in France and abroad where it was completely legal for me to drink. It wasn't even my first legal drink in America because states, although federal age is 21, as we know, states actually vary to an extent. And in Massachusetts, on private property with parental permission, it's legal to drink at 18. Or at least it was at the time when I was 18. So I was like, well, it's not even my first legal drink in America. So we figured out it was like my first legal drink in America that I like purchased in a bar or something. So we were like, okay, close enough, sure. So we got that. I'm so excited, and I'm so excited to show my ID, and I'm ready. And it says 21 on it, and I'm like, okay, yeah. So I go in, and it was the lunchtime crew, which meant that I hadn't been in a couple years. My dad hadn't been in a couple years. The lunchtime crew was never like the crew we knew, and so they just took my order. I was so disappointed, and we were like, damn. Actually, about a year later, I was home for summer break, and my dad and I went to McMenamins for dinner. And it was dinner, so it was the crew we knew, and I ordered a cider, and they were like, no. And I was like, yes. And they were like, let me see your ID. Saw that I had been 21 for over a year, and actually the owner of the bar, who saw me grow up, knew my parents, and the bar came over and gave me a voucher thing for a free drink. He said, sorry, I missed your 21st. And I was like, I was here. But anyway, so my dad says, no, because I'm so disappointed about not showing my ID. My dad says, no, don't worry about it. There's a liquor store right next door, which if you don't live in Pennsylvania, let me explain how Pennsylvania works. Pennsylvania has some draconian alcohol laws here in the year of our Lord 2020. I don't know why. It's because they like to. So a couple years ago, and I literally mean a couple years ago, as in 3 or 4. So when I went to college in 2018. No, I didn't. I went to college in 2014. I graduated in 2018. In 2014, you could not buy beer and wine in grocery stores. By the time I graduated college, you could, but it was still super new. And it's only very select stores. Now it's kind of expanded. Still not all grocery stores, but a couple have them. You can typically find one around. And that was like huge. That was groundbreaking. And we have beer distributors, right? It used to be if you wanted beer that was less than a case, because at beer distributors you could buy a case. You wanted less than that, you want a 6-pack, you had to go to a bar to buy a 6-pack. But you couldn't take more than a 6-pack out. So if you wanted 2 6-packs, you had to do it in shifts. And Pennsylvania is stupid. Anyway, so we still have our state stores. And state stores are where you can buy wine and liquor, because you can't buy liquor anywhere but a state store. Or, you can get a shot at a bar, but you can't buy a bottle. So whatever. So we go to the state store that's next door, and I'm so ready, and I'm like, yeah, let's do this. I'm gonna buy my first bottle of wine. And I buy Bouton Cadet Bordeaux Rosé. partially because I love a good Bordeaux rosé, partially because it's like $7 a bottle. It's actually very good wine for being that cheap. I mean, it's not like the best rosé you've ever had in your life, but like for $7, it might be. Anyway, so I go in, they don't ask for my ID. I was like so disappointed. I was like, okay, fine, I guess, sure. So then that night, my parents decided they were going to take me out to dinner with my sister, and we had a reservation at a restaurant near us called Paris, and it's like supposed to be French food, and it's really good. And my neighbor came over and said, I want to celebrate with you. How about I take you for a drink first? We'll get a cocktail, and then your parents will just meet us up at the reservation time. Okay, sure, great, sounds good. Now, in my head, I'm like, I'm not paying, so I don't need my wallet. Guess what was in my wallet? My ID. So, walk into the restaurant, we sit at the bar, I order a Cosmo, and they're like, yeah, sure, totally. Can I see your ID? And I was like, oh my God, I don't have it. The first time, the whole day, I've been just begging for people to check my ID. And the first time someone asks for it, I don't have it. I try to talk to them. I'm like, look, I don't have it, but it's my 21st birthday. You guys literally have it in the reservation book that this is my 21st birthday. Like, come on, please. And he's like, no. And so my neighbor's like, okay, like I kind of got to get going. What, like, how do we deal with it? I think she had like dinner plans too. And so we called my parents, and then we were like, hey, can you bring my wallet when you come? It has my ID in it, and they won't let me get a drink. So they came, we got the wallet. I showed the guy my ID. Barb actually handed me her drink, which she hadn't touched, because they wouldn't even put a drink in front of me, like nothing. They would only serve Barb. So Barb was like, okay, well, I'm still buying you a drink. So she ordered a drink and just like didn't touch it. And then the minute I got my ID, she handed it to me, and then she left because she had like a dinner engagement. And I got nicely turned that night. I wasn't like sloppy drunk or anything, but I was like, I was nicely turned. It was a good night. That was my first of my 3 21st birthday parties. The one actually on my 21st, but anyway, so it was a long-winded tale. Clearly, I really haven't talked to people today. Which, yeah, as much as I'm pretending this is like a video diary of what's going on, which it is, that is the basic function of this, and that's why I started it. It's also nice just to talk. Because as much as Daisy tries, she can't talk back. Obviously, the computer can't talk back either, but I think it's just that mental trick. Do you guys know that mental trick of if you're having a phone interview with somebody, you should stare at a mirror when you do it? Because even though it's a simulated image or it's a reflection of an image, seeing a person, even if it's just you, triggers things in your mind to make you think like you're talking to an actual person. And they've done tests and studies where even if you're on a phone interview, if you're smiling, if you're dressed professionally, and if you're looking in a mirror, you perform significantly better. So it's a fun little tidbit for you. Yeah, clearly in my personal life, not a whole lot happened today. I worked. Daisy had an accident in the house, and it's the first time since October that she's had an accident with me. She's a very, very scared, skittish dog. So when we got the new dog walkers at the beginning of tax season, she had a couple accidents, but that was because she was scared of them. Not like I can't hold it kind of accidents. And to be fair, this isn't like on her as a not being house trained or something. She's on medication that's making her pee a lot right now and making her drink a lot. And so I'm just like, the frustrating bit was I took my eyes off her for 5 seconds so I could put my shoes on so I could take her out on a walk. And that's when she like ran to a corner and peed. And I was like, dude, we were going outside. Like, you couldn't have held it for literally 30 more seconds. But on the other hand, she doesn't know that. So I guess it's fine. But thankfully, Tomorrow's our last full day of medication, and then for the next 3 days after that, we get to have a half portion of medication, and then we do a half portion every other day for the remaining 3 days. Because steroids, you ease off those. Yeah, on the plus side, her appetite has returned in a way that hasn't existed for like months, which is really kind of nice. At first, I thought it was just like the really bougie food that she was eating, which I mean, TBH probably helped. But then I put her regular food in front of her, and she was like eating it like crazy. And so I was like, huh, okay. So this morning or tonight, I fed her like a teeny tiny bit more than usual. I normally give her a cup. I gave her kind of like I call it a heaping cup. But technically, I think she's supposed to be eating like a cup and a half per meal. But just because she was struggling to even get down like a cup, I wasn't even like trying to do that. So I don't know. Maybe she'll fatten back up. She was a little bit of an overweight pupper when I got her, and not in like a dangerous way or anything. I actually asked the vet, and I said like, I know she's a little overweight for her breed. Her breed standard is 40 to 50 pounds, with females being on the lighter edge of that breed standard, and Daisy's 60 pounds. And at times she's been heavier, partially because the medication she's on, the medications like she has been on throughout her life because of how messed up her feet are, cause her to gain weight and stuff. So I was like, does she have to lose weight? And the vet was like, you know what? No, it's not like it's causing any problems right now, so it's fine. But for the past couple months, because she's been really picky with eating and stuff, she's lost a bit of weight to the point where she's actually, I think, like, I don't know what her actual weight is, but with dogs, what you should be able to do is you shouldn't be able to see their ribs, but if you touch them, you should be able to feel their ribs. And you couldn't really do that with Daisy before. I mean, you could, but you had to like dig around in there and find her ribs. Now I can feel her ribs quite nicely. I mean, can't see them, which is good. But maybe we'll get a layer of fat back on her, which I wouldn't mind. I wouldn't mind having a chunky pup. But all right, guys. I think that's it from me tonight. I'm trying to keep myself up a little bit because I'm very tired and I would like to go to bed. But I know Daisy's going to have to pee at some point, so I'm trying to kind of push it back so that she'll sleep in later. This morning she woke me up at 6:30, which I know she's trying. I know medication is affecting her, and so I'm not like too mad about it. But at the same time, I'm just like, girl, no, girl, go back to sleep. So, also found out today she can sleep with her eyes open, which I didn't know. It freaked me out a little bit. Then I googled it. Turns out it's just a evolutionary thing that dogs and wolves developed so that they wouldn't be attacked while they slept. So there's a fun little tidbit for you. So, all right, guys, I will talk to you later.